Hello, this is iHearIC Radio. My name is Justin Comer. This is the 116th episode that I've recorded. We may release them out of order, though, because we may be delaying this one's release to coincide with the release of something else. But iHearIC Radio is a show about mostly local music in Iowa City. It's got radio in the name because it used to be on the radio, and maybe someday it will be on the radio again. But for now, it's just online, recorded from my house, recorded from other people's houses when they come on the show and talk to me. Speaking of other people, though, let's just get straight to the introduction. I'm going to read a little bio here for you, and then I'll say hello. Erik Whittaker has written and performed music in many Iowa bands, including the Old Scratch Revival Singers, Peanut Ricky, Gimpy, and Los Voltage. I'll Remember You This Way is his first release as a solo artist. Erik's sound is influenced by Roy Orbison, Julie Cruz, Scott Walker, PJ Harvey, and Bauhaus, resulting in reverb-drenched Americana ballads filtered through the coldness of post-punk. Welcome to my program, Erik Whittaker.
Thanks for having me.
How's it going?
Oh, pretty well. To hear that read out loud, it's very long-winded.
Oh, I think it's fairly brief.
I could just say, I try to sound like Twin Peaks. That's
yeah.
The truth of the matter.
Yeah, well, you've got Julie Cruz's name in there, so...
Right, yeah. It's not hidden, just buried.
Sure, yeah. It's not the only thing you say about yourself.
Right. I sound like Julie Cruz, but a dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to mention this. Erik is a veteran of the iHearIC concert series. I believe he played solo in August of 2017, and then with the Demon Possessed trio, I think that was December 2018.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah.
Similar-ish things on my part. Just twang. Guitar twang. That's my bread and butter.
Yeah. Although I think the second time you also had your Penderecki machine.
Oh,
which
right.
I think is what you called that.
Yeah. A noise box. Yeah. Terrible noise box. Yeah.
Is the object itself terrible, or was the noise that it creates terrible?
Yeah, no, the noise that it creates is terrible. Yes. Well, the object's not unterrible. It's a box with a bunch of stuff nailed to it. Yeah, it's not pretty by any means. So.
I assume you still have it, right?
I do. It gets very little use. It's like if I'm working on something and I'm like, okay, this is pretty good, but I want it to make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up and make you not want to listen anymore.
Right.
Then I'll dig it out. Yeah.
Yeah. When you just need a little extra punch, that's when the box comes out.
Yeah.
So let's since it was in your bio and it's one of the things we wanted to touch on tonight, let's talk about your album, which was released November, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I've got a cassette copy right here.
Oh, nice.
For the viewers. And speaking of viewers, I do record the video of these conversations, so if you're not on the iHearIC Patreon, you can go there and you can see the video, and then you'll get the extremely important visual aspect of me showing the cassette to the camera with a really bad reflection of my computer monitor.
If you've ever seen me, just imagine me holding a guitar. That's it.
It is a very... it's a very simple but like elegant album cover, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's stolen from Roy Orbison.
Sure.
So it's it's just a classic Roy Orbison photo. And instead I'm wearing a mask because it was 2020 and that's how things are. So.
Yeah. When did you record this?
Yeah, pretty much. It took about 6 months. And it was during the pandemic. Justin and I met at a job. I don't know if we want to get into all that, but I quit that job.
And good. I don't think I knew that you had quit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I quit right at spring break of last year. And so I started working for the school district. Mm-hmm. So because of how things were sort of on again, off again, and things like that, I had a chunk of time to work on this. And so it was kind of nice. I think that's one of the reasons it took me, 30 years to put out a solo album. It's like I just didn't have a lot of time to dig in and stay in that moment long enough to sort of put something out and work on it, if that makes any sense.
That does make sense. Like, yeah. I mean, you've been a very active performer, and you've recorded a lot of stuff with other people, but you didn't have the luxury of time to be focused on like a one cohesive piece that's coming from your brain.
And I was also just scared. Honestly, It's like it's still strange to see anything with just my name on it. It's like pretty disturbing. I don't like it at all. Like, I'm not used to it. Like even in other bands, I've used aliases and different names and things because it's like just something about my name, not my name in particular, but just the idea of just my name on something is, I don't know, pretty terrifying to me. I don't know. And a lot of people do a solo thing, but then they use a moniker or whatever. And I thought about that, but then I thought it was sort of not dishonest or anything like that, but inauthentic. But now looking back, I don't know, because I don't know how you do any sort of merchandising or marketing. Like no one's going to wear a shirt that just says my name on it,
Well, you
or
don't
put a sticker on their car that just says Erik Whittaker. That's so dumb.
You don't know that for sure.
I guess that's true. I wouldn't wear a shirt that just said my name on it, and it's my name.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, that might be weirder if it's your own.
Right. That's true.
Then it seems more like a work uniform.
Your full name. Yeah. Yep. So.
And I know that a lot of people who may listen to this are probably familiar with Erik Whittaker, the contemporary choral composer. So just to eliminate any confusion, the Erik that I'm speaking to, his last name is spelled Whittaker. It's a different Whittaker. Are you ever confused for the more famous Erik Whittaker?
No, although I did seriously consider calling this project the other Erik Whittaker. But then I knew for a fact people would go look up his stuff. Like they would be, even if they found me, they would say, well, who's the real Erik Whittaker?
Right. This is not the prime Erik Whittaker. This is some secondary.
But actually, the place that we used to work at was pretty much the only time that came up.
Okay.
I don't, because a lot of people that work there were music students,
right,
or are music students, and so they know about the other Erik Whittaker. I mean, the real Erik Whittaker. And so, but other jobs I've had, like work in construction, no one,
a lot of them,
no one knows
they weren't really
the choral composer Erik Whittaker. So like it's only within the last few years when I was at a more music oriented occupation. So
Were you familiar with the more famous Erik Whittaker prior to that job?
No.
Okay.
No, I wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't until people started to come in and literally laugh at my name and just be like, Erik Whittaker, oh my God, that's hilarious. And I'd be like,
no context.
What? Yeah. So after a little while, I figured it out and wasn't, hurt emotionally by it. So.
They didn't explain, or were you too?
No, they just walked away laughing.
Too nervous to ask them.
I was just like, yeah, I guess, whatever.
Names are weird.
Strings.
Yeah, names are. It is weird,
it has a lot of consonants in it. I guess that's pretty funny. I don't know.
Have you ever looked in the mirror and said your own name to yourself? It is pretty weird.
It is hilarious, actually. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, all right. So this album, it's called I'll Remember You This Way. Is that just a vague phrase, or is that actually directed at somebody?
Well, that's a tough one. Well, actually, it's not super tough. There's the song Mr. Blue Sky by Electric Light Orchestra.
Right.
And there's sort of a break where the immortal Jeff Lynne says something about death has his hand upon your shoulder, and he says, "Never mind, I'll remember you this way." Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, for years, well, it's probably depression or something, for years, and I heard that song right at that moment, it made me cry, like almost every time.
Wow.
And so I just thought that's a nice phrase. And also, my friend Sean Jones, he was my best friend. He passed away a couple of years ago. And so this was sort of a response to that. I wouldn't say it's like a memorial or a concept or anything like that. It's not directly related, but sort of the mood of the recording, I think, has a certain element of sadness and isolation and loss to the whole thing. And so I think that played into it, but also the fact that the songs were written and recorded during a pandemic when a lot of people were very sick and dying. Mm-hmm. I think that, and just the state of the world, it seemed like a lot of people were passing away. And so it started to become a little more like, I don't know how to say it, meaningful in a lot of different ways. Everything sort of came together. Because, like, honestly, if you haven't lost someone in the last year and a half, like, you're pretty lucky.
Yeah. Like,
it's been a rough time for a lot of people. So I think that all sort of played into the title. It was just kind of like, there's an element of loss, not only in my personal life during this moment, but to the world in this moment. And so, just remembering the way things were before, and it works on a lot of different levels. And so when it entered my head, I was just like, yeah, that's it. I'm going to use that phrase. So
and those of us who have not been sick or dying, like, we've all been pretty isolated anyway. At least we should be, but
yeah, right.
But yeah, it's been,
if you're doing it right, you're miserable.
Yeah.
So good job.
I don't think the mic is picking it up, but Weasel was snoring, so I was going to wake her up, but she woke up on her own.
It's a good indicator that I've gone on a little too long.
No, she sleeps.
If you put a cat to sleep, damn.
Well, it's pretty easy. She's sleeping pretty much all day. That's another little bonus for anyone who's viewing the video version of this, is that I've got a cat sleeping over my shoulder in the background.
And she is cute.
Yeah, she's adorable.
So,
she's
subscribe.
Curled up on the blanket, sitting in my wife's office chair. It's like she passed out at her desk.
Nice.
And yeah, you mentioned Sean, who he was one of the trio that played for iHearIC.
Yeah,
I didn't know Sean well, but I had met him, I believe, twice. And yeah, you did, in the notes here on the album, you've got a big for Sean right there.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really have much else to say.
Yeah, I mean, the songs really are fairly straightforward in terms of, like, lyrical content. Like, you don't really have to explain it other than just listen to the song.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that is I hate how much of an influence David Lynch is on me. Like, I feel really lame about it, but it's just the way it is. But one thing I really like about his stuff is if you don't mind, I'll tell just a tiny story. I saw the movie.
Feel free to say whatever you want. We don't need to structure this in any.
I saw the movie.
Don't feel boxed in.
Inland Empire at the Bijou when it came out, with Sean, actually. Mm-hmm. But so we're about 3/4 of the way through the movie, and I hear behind me what I assume would be the funniest thing you could ever hear someone say at a David Lynch movie. The guy behind me says, "Man, I just don't understand what's happening right now." But then the guy he's with says, I'll explain it to you later, which is even funnier. So, but so with my songs, it's like, I don't think you have to dig around for a meaning necessarily, but I can tell you right now, there is no meaning. So like, don't even worry about it. Just, let the words kind of wash over you because there's no narrative. It's like, dream logic kind of situation. You find yourself like film noir. It's like you find yourself in a moment and you explain the moment that you're in. And then that's the song. It's like, there's not a lot of hidden meaning because there's no meaning.
Right. If there's a moment where you feel like you're not getting something, it's just like, well, what's it sound like and how do you feel now?
Right.
That's the extent.
Yeah.
And yeah,
there is one song that leans towards a narrative, and it seems that it might be about cheating or having a partner cheat on you or something. But in reality, that was more about, I don't know if I want to give away all my secrets, but it was actually sort of about like if you were in a relationship with like a killer or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Like,
and that's
originally,
don't be honest.
Don't be honest. Yeah. And so that was sort of the idea, was like, if you discovered the person that you loved was just a monster in some way, like, how would that feel? And what would you have to say about it? So, I think that's the only song that really someone could be like, I think this is about something. So,
yeah, I thought it was just kind of a cheating song. And then, that's how it comes across anyway, to me. And I assumed it was fictional and not autobiographical.
Yeah. When I wrote that, my wife was like, oh my God, everyone's going to think I'm a big slut or something. And I was like, well, no, people write from a character's point of view all the time, you know, and I usually don't, but that's okay.
Right. That's another kind of complication of releasing art under your own name is
right.
If it's you singing, like they may assume this is something that actually happened.
Yeah. Written and recorded by this dude whose wife cheats on him currently. Right. It's not really a past tense sort of song. No. So,
right.
But no, it was more written from, that sort of perspective of, wow, what if my partner were a monster? What would I do about that? You know?
Yeah, there's that one, and then the one before it, Out There, that's the one where I really feel the like current events isolation. Yeah.
And that one, I mean, it could definitely be about sort of a pandemic sort of feeling, but it also could be very much like an agoraphobic kind of feeling, or depression or whatever, something that keeps you inside.
Yeah.
You know, and it might not even be physically inside, you know, it could be mentally, you know, all that stuff, all that metaphorical, philosophical nonsense.
Yeah.
That artists like.
I wish I could breathe the air out there, I think is part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I'm sure that had to do with the reality of our world right now.
Well, it can't be avoided. I mean, it's the only thing. It's been the overwhelming like subject of our entire lives for very close to a year now. It's hard for that not to be part of the discussion.
And I thought you were just going to stop with our entire lives, which I also would have agreed with. It's like, I think people go through life. I know I have and do, thinking there's something big coming. Like, I don't know what it is, but I know that this isn't it. And I feel like there's something, we're on the cusp of something. And I think people feel that way their whole lives. And this is the first time in my life where I was like, oh, snap. It really happened.
This is the thing that I've been anticipating.
It is the thing, right? It's really a big deal. And that's pretty wild that we've lived. I mean, hopefully we've lived through this thing that literally changed every aspect of our lives. I don't think we could have expected that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty wild.
Something I've been thinking about recently, though, is the extent to which it hasn't, or like what about our lives hasn't it actually changed? And there's this kind of like inertia from just like the status quo from February 2020 that's just so persistent in the way that like our civilization is oriented, where like people still have to have jobs. You know, like this should have actually affected our lives more than it did, I think.
I agree with that. Yeah. And I think if it were left up to us, the people living through it, I mean, everyone's living through it. I don't want to go full on anarchist here, but the people with the boots on the ground, they probably would have made different decisions. A lot of people would have, you know, like I know that if I would have still been working at the place we used to work at, I wouldn't have. I would have left. I wouldn't have been able to do that job working with the public. I would have been too afraid. And so
you quit before like the real shit started.
The day before. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was literally like right at spring break, my wife and I were planning on going to Joshua Tree, and we actually canceled our travel plans that day. We were going to leave Friday night, and we canceled like Friday morning. Yeah. So it was pretty sudden. But I had left my job on the day before that.
Wow.
So pretty good timing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking like, I quit that job like probably 10 months or so before the everyone had to change their behavior. And yeah, towards the beginning of the pandemic, I was thinking, man, I am so glad that I didn't have that job when this started.
Right. Yeah. And since we're being all, pretty shielded about it, we can talk about it. I don't think they were very considerate, actually, from what I've heard from the people that we still knew there, that they didn't take a lot of precautions or safety action. So I wouldn't have been able to handle it. I would have been like 3 days in and been like, no, I gotta go. Forget it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Fortunately, I mean, I wasn't dealing with the public every day like you were, but I still would have had to come and sit at a desk in a basement with poor ventilation.
And a lot of coughing and heavy breathing.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't taking like great care of ourselves before. And
yeah. For sure. As a group.
Yeah.
Fairly unhealthy. Yeah. Oh boy. Anyone who worked with us is going to get a kick out of all this. Everyone else will be like,
yeah.
Who cares?
I mean, it seems like since I left, the number of people who worked with both of us has, and still work in that place has been dropping off.
Oh yeah. As far as I know, there aren't any cool people left. Rude.
Yeah.
No, there might be cool people that have started. Not all the cool people we knew.
Yeah. I mean, like. As of like 2 weeks ago, I think there were a couple people still that I had some sort of relationship with outside of work, and they have left as well. Yeah. I think some of the people that I got along with, but they were more like coworker relationships, are still there, but I haven't spoken to them recently.
Me neither.
Yeah.
All right.
So when we started talking about the album, you said like if you haven't lost somebody in the past year, you're very lucky. And you released this on November 18th, according to the Bandcamp page.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
My friend Hannah took her own life 8 days prior to that.
Oh, wow.
So you released this, and I saw that it was like for Sean, and the music is very somber and here I'll use the tags here, somber and dark and dreamy.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
I listened to it, I think the day that you released it, and I was like, wow, this is like exactly how my spirit feels now. And I forget the phrase that I used when I messaged you about it.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was very good. It was one of my favorite things anyone has said about it, actually.
I think I just called it beautifully sad.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually had a really nice conversation on Messenger that day. I'm looking through it right now. It went on for a while. That was so cool.
That was, I mean, I'm still dealing with it because it's
right.
Probably the worst thing that's ever happened in my life. And
yeah,
like I think about it every day still, but in that, like the month after it happened, like those few weeks, I was like a different person. Like I'm usually pretty, like I keep my true emotions kind of numbed, like held inside.
For sure.
But for that month, I was like, I have no guard anymore. Like none of my usual self-imposed like composure. Like I don't have the strength for it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Those sort of like, I don't know. I don't want to call them defense mechanisms because defense technically means like a response. These are more like force fields or guards, fences, walls that we put up, right? And I think that as I've gotten older and have lost more and more people, but also befriended more and more people, like I used to be guarded and I used to hide everything through humor and being offensive. Like those were my two modes. And actually they were the same mode.
Sure.
And now it's like I just wear it on my sleeve all the time to the point of making people uncomfortable. Like I am just open all the time. Like if a stranger came up to me and said, "Hey, do you have a moment to talk about working your way through the loss of a friend?" I'd be like, "Yeah, let's do that. That sounds like a great idea." And it's like, because I don't know, I've started to realize that if that does make someone uncomfortable, then we don't have anywhere to go anyway. Because we would probably end up there at some point if we were friends, right? Having a real conversation.
Yeah.
And if they can't handle it, then like, why even explore it? Like, let's just cut to the chase.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think a lot of that kind of comes from maybe playing out and spending some time on the road or whatever. You make like one night friends. You're in a new place.
Okay, yeah. So you gotta get to it right away.
Yeah, it's like, well, this person's letting me stay, letting us all sleep on their floor. Like, I don't know why we wouldn't stay up till 2 a.m. drinking and talking about real life, and we'll never see each other again. And that's kind of awesome. And to be quite honest, I don't have any specific memories of that. It was just every night because, I remember a few people or whatever, but it's like fast friends. I really enjoy that. I love being like, just if we meet, we start talking, I'll talk the whole night and I'll talk about anything you want. Cause I don't know why exactly. It's just like, I spent a lot of time being guarded and it didn't get me anywhere. It didn't advance me as a person or my relationships or any element of life holding back, Yeah. It's like, why didn't I just put it all out there?
Yeah. I don't think I'm quite there yet, but
yeah.
I mean, Hannah's suicide really did chip away at a lot of the, like what I've been holding back, like I don't know. I feel like I'm a personable person and I enjoy like making friends and having conversations with people, but I tend to keep part of myself to myself. And now it's like, well, my friend is gone forever and that could happen with anyone that I know. So like, why why keep stuff away from these people who I may never see
For
again?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know from experience, it's a lot easier to look back on someone that you've lost, a relationship that you've lost even, and know that you left it all on the table, that there was literally nothing else you could say, that if you even had, I'll tell you a little story. This is extremely sad, I guess,
Yeah.
but I find it extremely funny too. Sean was in hospice, and unbeknownst to me, it was the last time we were going to talk.
Mhm.
And so we were hanging out, and his wife had just shown up, and I was just going to give them some time, but before she got there, he had gotten a morphine injection or shot or however that works. And I was like, well, dude, I better get going or whatever, and I'll talk to you later or whatever. And he was like, oh, I'll just hang out a little bit longer. The morphine's about to kick in, and that'll be awesome. And I was like, listen, dude, I literally don't need to sit around talking to you on drugs any more than I have in my life already. And he was like, yeah, I guess so. And so said goodbye. But it was just one of those moments where it was like, we don't have a lot else to say. And, and that's a good I mean, it's an amazing feeling. It's the best feeling you could have, is to walk away and just be like, yeah, over and out, and I hope that everyone gets to experience that. And I think that when you do start to open up and be honest with people and tell your friends you love them and give them a hug every time you see them, I mean, post-COVID, of course, then you will have that experience. When the unthinkably bad happens, you'll have that good element to it.
Yeah, fewer regrets, things that you wish you had done or said.
Yeah.
It's hard to avoid feeling that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's move on to something a little less heavy.
Okay. Well, it's not my music, right? Because it's all like this. This is what it does.
Yeah. So you and I had been discussing recording a podcast together for, I think, about 2 months before we finally actually did this.
Yeah.
And the impetus for, actually sitting down and recording this was that you had just filmed something for the Englert, correct?
Yes. Yeah. And actually they put it out on Facebook today, so I guess I can actually talk about it, and we can release this whenever.
Okay.
It's one of the first times I've ever had a contract, and I mean, it might be the first time I've had a contract associated with music that I've read. I made some bad choices in the past as far as records and things like that, but
interesting. I may have to follow up on that.
Oh man, I don't even know. But yeah, so yeah, the Englert, I did a thing called Stages. They asked me, I assume that Gabby Vanek being like a producer maybe had something to do with that, or Chris Wearsema kind of setting up some of it. I probably had something to do with it. I know both of them, and they're both wonderful people.
Yep, agreed.
When I was first contacted, I was like, why me? So I assume one of those guys kind of pushed for it. So, but yeah, it was a cool experience. I've never played at the Englert, and I've still never played it in front of any people at the Englert. I would love to go back anytime they need the entire audience to fall asleep and or cry themselves to sleep. They could give me a call.
I imagine your big reverb twangy stuff would sound really good in that big empty room.
It sounded okay to me. I don't know. It was strange because it was 3 people, 2 people producing and 1 person videoing or taking photos. And So one thing I do when I play is like I really let things drop down to basically silence, and I really enjoy it. It's like my favorite thing to do is like let things just set and rest for a second. And if like there's somewhat almost like a cappella moments, because like when everything else drops away. It's I just love that. I just think it's something that you don't get to experience in live music, and especially in noise based music, which even though the stuff on my record is not like that, I would say it's very much like 50s ballads. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, it's Roy Orbison sounds like kind of country music sometimes.
Right. Yeah. And so, but most of the time, not most of the time, but a lot of times I do things that are really more noise based,
right.
or at least there's an element of that where there's literally no silence ever.
Right.
Like if there was silence, people would be like, "Oh, you're the worst noise artist I've ever heard."
Or the set's over.
Right. Yeah. That's how you know that you hit your big crescendo. I love noise and I love noise shows, but the arc that every noise show follows is hilarious to me. Like just the starting with silence, slowly building until it's unlistenable, power violence, and then it goes back down to silence. It's just, it's awesome. I mean, I'm not making fun of anyone because I do the same thing, but it's like,
yeah, we've talked about this before.
It's kind of fun.
We both do this, but it also is funny that like a lot of the stuff that we've done, somebody with like no experience,
right?
no skills could also do.
They could literally get a terrible sound on their synthesizer, open up the filter at the slowest pace they possibly could for 45 minutes, and then close that filter again, and that's a noise performance.
Right.
So
it's not like meaningfully, it doesn't sound that much different than someone who's like really thinking about this and putting like years of experience into it,
and could explain it all theoretically and all the choices they made.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah. So one of my favorite things is to let things drop down to silence. And so when I got done, they were like, "Hey, nice job," or whatever. And I said, "That had to have been the most boring one you've had so far." And they could sort of laughed, and I was like, "Yeah, it's basically just watching a guy try to be quiet. Like that's not very exciting." So I'm really selling the performance right now. But no, it's a funny way to try to accomplish something, which is like restraint is the main motivation. Like people don't do that. And I think I only do it because I'm afraid to really go for it. So it's like, well, if you can't belt it out, you might as well rein it in. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
It's kind of, it's like an inverse of what we were talking about in terms of like our emotions and relationships with people.
Right. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm highly guarded on stage.
Yeah.
That's where I get to keep it all inside and not share it all.
The moments when I'm performing in front of people.
Right. That's when I'm most introverted.
Yeah.
That's actually true. I've never thought of that. That's hilarious.
Well, they announced today that this is going to be released on Wednesday, March 10th. So you've got a few weeks for that. I don't really understand how the ticket thing works.
It's confusing on there. I don't know for sure either, because I think it says free. But then when you click, it's not.
The Facebook event says it's free, but you can also, I think they're doing like a sliding scale thing maybe.
Oh, okay.
But
I also know it's like sort of a subscription you can get too, which is cool. Like you buy the whole series.
Yeah, because this is part of a series of videos. They've also announced my friends Jean-Francois Charles and Ramin Rochandel. They've got one coming out tomorrow.
Right. That was one of the first ones, right? I think there was one released last week too. I don't remember who it was.
I think they've started releasing them, yeah. But,
cool. It's really a cool thing. I love Iowa City, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. As an old townie, I'm well past the the honeymoon period where you come to Iowa City and you're like, wow, they really do have a lot going on. I'm well past that. And I still am constantly excited about things happening, even though things can't physically happen anymore.
Not much has happened for a while.
Yeah,
but
it's still, there's still ways to see artists in your community though. And I think that's super cool. I think people have found a lot of fun ways to make it happen. So
yeah, we're working around it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I should mention Penny Peach has one of these stages videos coming out March 31st.
Nice.
Previous guest on this program, so she gets the special plug. You mentioned that you are an old townie, and I often ask people when I talk to them on here about like their earlier experiences, like when they started making music or art or whatever. I know that you're older than me. I don't usually ask people their ages, so I don't know how much older you are than me.
Well, how old are you? We'll start there.
I turned 30 in September.
Okay, so I'm only 1.5 times your age.
Got it.
No, I'm 44.
Okay.
So, yep.
Okay. When you say you're an old townie, how long have you actually been here?
Let's see. I've left for a couple years at a time, a couple of times. But yeah, mostly in Iowa City since 2000.
Okay,
So
yeah, I'd say that
quite a while.
You've definitely, if there was a honeymoon period, you've probably gone past it. That would be a very long honeymoon.
There was about 3 years where I left to live in Denver, Iowa.
Denver, Iowa. Where is that?
Yeah, it's by Waverly. I'll just keep saying smaller towns in Iowa.
I do know Waverly.
Oh, it's right over there by Shell Rock. Yeah, no, it's in that general area. So, but that was to play with a band called the Heart Attacks, and then ultimately the Old Scratch Revival Singers.
Got it.
Started there. So, yeah. And then after we left the farmhouse we lived in, I came back here. And so, except for those like 3 years, I've been here for about 21 years. So
nice.
Quite a long time.
Yeah, I've been here about 8.5 years, if I'm doing the math in my head correctly. So
well, age-wise, that's probably about the same percentage of life.
Right? Yeah, I think that's right.
Sure, I don't know how to do math, but
it seems right, if you just make the comparison and judge quickly. I think, we're making a point here for sure.
You're right.
And I guess like this, when did you start playing guitar? Or like, what did you play first? When did you first get into music?
Guitar. I was about 13. I lived in Muscatine, Iowa. Sort of a smaller town. I mean, smaller than Iowa City.
Sure.
So I played a lot of music during that time, and it was a time when a lot of people didn't play music. So I pretty much started setting up shows, which is something people really hadn't done, and started kind of doing a DIY thing in my town, which was sort of a new thing.
This would have been like
late
80s, right?
It would have been early 90s.
Okay.
Yeah. But when I started playing shows and things like that.
Sure.
But because I was setting everything up, my band always got to play, so.
Yeah. That's something that I've figured out in the past few years.
Right. Yeah, if you set up the shows, you get to play.
I can play if I want.
And then, so left Muscatine, played in a band called Gimpy with Sean, another guy named Jeff, in Waterloo when we went to school there. That was sort of a new wave Cars/Devo kind of thing.
Nice.
That went on for quite a while. I don't know. And that actually continued into Iowa City. So that was about 2000 when we first moved here. That was the band I was playing in. Since then, I've had a few different bands with varying levels of success. And so, yeah, before everything changed, before the pandemic, I was playing with, I think, 4 different bands. And so that's pretty cool. I was having a blast.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I remember, actually, this is like very like different from the music we've been discussing so far, but I think the first time I saw you perform at all was with In the Mouth of Radness.
Yeah.
In like 2016.
Yeah.
Like spring
Where was
2016, I think.
Was that in like a basement
Yeah,
show?
that was at, they called it the Governor's Mansion. I don't know if
Right,
that's still a
right.
house venue or not.
Oh,
but-
man, I had mono. I had mono that day.
Oh, right. You had been
Yeah.
touring with those guys like
It
a
was
few
like
days before that.
like a 3-day
Right.
tour. And
And you got sick.
I played the first show, and I drank back then. I mean, not only did I drink back then, I really drank back then. And so I thought I was just sick from smoking and drinking and being up all night for 3 days. But no, I had mono, actually. So you got to see me perform with mono.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And you were playing metal, which
Yeah,
like
thrash.
yeah, most of what I've seen you
basically.
play is very like slow, you know.
Yeah. I mean, but anyone that knows me knows that I live in a hyperbolic universe. Everything is extreme ends of the spectrum.
Mhm.
Like, it's either going to be outrageously slow, or it's going to be outrageously fast, or it's going to be super quiet, or it's going to be super loud. Like, I don't spend a lot of time like thinking, oh, I just wrote a nice song that people are going to enjoy. Like, hell no. Like, what's the point? There's so much nice music out there. Like, you know, not to say that like the songs on my record aren't nice. They are, but it's not just straight palatable music, I don't think. I think that it's somewhat interesting. I think that people, I don't know, people with more average, regular tastes, I don't want to sound like an elitist. Well, maybe I do. I don't care. They might say, whoa, why are there robot voices on this chorus of this song? That doesn't make any sense. You know?
I do think it's a pretty accessible collection of music, but it also like there are moments where I'm like, oh, okay, he is like getting to do some of the fun stuff that he likes
Right.
occasionally in here. Yeah, I tend to be drawn to the same kind of thing. Like, there's already so much music. It's like I'm not gonna probably ever create something that's like as attractive and beautiful to someone as like I don't even know what to say. Like, you know, there's so much of that music out there that's like, this is my favorite song. It makes me weep. Like the ELO thing we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Like,
I mean, Mr. Blue Sky is just, I mean, come on. It's almost like a satire of perfection. You know, it's just so good. Every second that goes by, you're like, come on. Are you serious? It's so amazing. Yeah. I love ELO.
One of those songs for me, like, it's, I don't think it's really at the level of ELO, but it's Dreamweaver. Like, if you like turn that up really loud on your car speakers, like, that is a transcendent song.
It's pretty sick. And it's such clean production. Yeah. It is reminiscent of, I think, Jeff Lynne's production.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where you're like, did they record every note individually? You know, it's like, it's just so crisp and so purposeful. I mean, there's every sound in there was made for you to hear it and be like, whoa, cool sound. You know?
Right.
So I love that song too. Especially the really outrageously weird intro. It's too good.
So I don't think I'm ever probably going to create anything that has that kind of effect on somebody. So I tend to like want to do like, I just want to make something that like I've never heard before, and that someone's going to hear that and be like, oh, what's that?
Right.
And even if it's like they don't like it and they think it's disgusting, it's like, well, they've experienced something new.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. And for me, it's not necessarily like sounds I don't think people have ever heard, even though that is something that I love to think about, especially with like the modular synth. I love the aspect of that where it's like, I know for a fact no one has ever heard this sound before.
Right.
Like it's impossible that anyone's ever heard this before.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just rip all the wires out and it's gone forever. It's the sweetest.
No one will hear it again.
Yeah.
No one but you heard that. That's kind of
Right,
like incredible.
Yeah, it really is. But at the same time, for me, it's more like mixing things together. Like I had a group called Los Voltage that was like, at its core, it was very much just like Black Flag, Bad Brains era, 80s hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
But we really never decided to do this. It just happened, but it also became really psychedelic. So it'd have these long spanning sort of moments that were just like trails of delay and timing that was off and strange. And like for us, it was like hilarious. Like we'd be at practice and just be like, okay, let's do that part 3 times and then 1 time and then 6 times and then go back to that other part for 1 time. And it was just like math. It was like, how stupid can we make this? But the result was so disorienting that people are like, I've never heard anything like that. And that's pretty amazing because all the elements were right there. They weren't hidden in any way. It was like, well, this is exactly what we're doing. Like
It's more about the order that you did them in and like
right. Yeah. And just different elements coming together is, I mean, that's all any of our favorite bands have ever done is like, I like this element and I like this element of this band and I like this idea from this band and I like this aesthetic from this band. Bring them all together and now it's something where people are like, oh my God, I've never heard or seen anything like that. And it's like, no, you have actually.
Yeah, it just
I can
wasn't
tell you all of them
filtered through this specific group of people.
Right.
Yeah. Have you Naked City, the John Zorn band? Yeah,
Yep.
Okay. That's the way you were describing that. It reminds me of like the early Naked City records, which are just
I
like
love the first Naked City record.
really fast switching between different genre tropes. It's
Yeah. I really enjoyed that one. I like it when Zorn has some parameters or at least some ideas of a goal that's being accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't mind it when he's meandering and just doing more noise and things like that, but with a group of people who are like-minded with a goal, I think he really shines. And I think everyone in that group shines. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, I haven't listened that extensively to like all of John Zorn's career, but what I've heard, like Naked City is definitely what I'm most attracted to. Like it's I've never heard anything like that first album, but I have, like in the same way as what you were just describing is like I've heard all these elements elsewhere, but just the way that it's all like smashed together.
Well, and the other thing too is if someone really pulls it off, no one else gets to do it.
Right.
Like, it's like Naked City's like, well, let's take spy music, avant-garde, classical, and grindcore, and put those things together. And now all of a sudden, I mean, if someone else did it, you'd be like, you rip off.
Right. And it's
only Naked City gets to do that.
And it's an Ornette Coleman melody over all of that too.
Right. Have you heard the one, I think it's called Spy versus Spy, where it's the same piece played. It has one backing track, but then Zorn does 2 takes and they're panned 100% left and right. It's actually killer. I mean, it's really cool. It sounds terrible, but it's really good. So you should check that one out.
Oh, it's a whole album like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, it's really something.
Yeah. Yeah, the panning, that's kind of an Ornette Coleman thing too, like the first Free Jazz album, which is just 2 bands panned.
Yeah. It's really something. Yeah. It's cool. The one thing I will say about that place we worked at, a lot of the people there went to school for music, and
Yeah.
I did not. I have wanted to pretty much my whole life, but it just hasn't worked out that way. But what was cool was I would talk about kind of weird elements of music, and then other people would be able to say, "Oh, that's just like George Crumb," or
Right.
"That's just like Ornette Coleman," or something, or whatever. And I'd be like, "Oh, snap, really?" And then so I got to listen to all this more like avant-garde composition and experimental composition, which I always associated with noise and punk rock and things like that. And so to have people who were normal, I mean, they were, a lot of the people we worked with were very normal people, telling me like, "Oh, you should check this crazy shit out," or whatever. And I ate it up. I learned a lot about different weird composers and music, and I realized how much that fed into the things that I already listened to. And in that sense, that job was awesome because I got to talk to people that went to music school, which even just having an adjacency to it made a difference to me. So that was cool.
I've had kind of the opposite trajectory where like I went to music school for the first like 6 years that I was an adult, and then in the years since then I've actually like met people who play shows instead of like reading books and listening to CDs. Yeah.
Well, it's funny when those things come together too. I think it's very funny. I think that Iowa City's a perfect place for that to happen too.
Yeah, because, and that's been the point of the iHearIC series since it began years before I lived here. It was like, we need to put these people in the same room.
Right. Absolutely, for sure. Because I think that both sides, I mean, if we have to have sides, which we do. No. I think both sides feel inadequate and judged by the other side, which is hilarious. Yeah. Like you talk to any punk and they're going to say, I mean, not any punk, but a punk that's interested in expanding their musical realms and knowledge and things, they're going to think, "Oh, I wish I knew more. I wish I knew more theory. I wish I had a way to express things that I want to express in a way that makes sense."
Right.
And I think a lot of times people that have gone to school for music are like, "I have this foundation, but I wish I could divorce myself from that knowledge a little bit and experiment a little bit and break away," kind of like Dada and art or whatever. Like all those people knew how to paint. They were trained artists and they broke away from it. They deviated from it. And even though that's exciting, it doesn't make it outsider art. It's still a deviation from knowledge. And so you get all these weird sort of crossover moments where it's like, what are you doing? And one person will be able to say, "I have no idea." And the other person will be able to say, "I can tell you exactly what I'm doing.
I can analyze it for you."
And so, but at the end of the day, the output is all that really actually matters. I've seen a lot of people with no knowledge get a lot of credit from very smart people in all of the arts. And I've seen people that are geniuses get shot down by a scene or a community. So, but I really do think Iowa City is a perfect place for those kind of things to come together. The self-taught and the highly educated. It's great for that.
Yeah. And the way that I've sort of seen it and the way that I've experienced it, like the years of study that I went through, like were very good for me. And I learned a lot about how all of this stuff works. But it also often kind of paralyzed me because I always felt like, well, there's more that I should learn before I'm like really the master of this. Like I have to reach this height of like academic success before I can really be considered like anyone important. And then I leave school and it's like, well, the people that are playing shows are just doing it. Like
and they don't know what the hell they're doing at all.
They have like a kind of innate confidence a lot of the time.
Right.
If I'm seeing them play a show, like they have some confidence, obviously. They were able to get on that stage. And like just like chilling out, like loosening up has benefited me a lot, which I learned from people who like didn't go to school for 6 years. They just like wanted to do this or express themselves this way, and they just like talked to the people who could make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Which I probably could have learned that in school too, but I was too timid, I guess.
I don't know. It's hard. It's like, I mean, that's a classic sort of artistic conundrum anyway, is like, you never know what your experiences have how they've affected what you do. And no one does. And so it's like, you don't necessarily know, if I would have done this thing, then this could have happened. Like you just have no idea. And so it's better to just take it all as one lump sum at the end of the day and say, what do I want to create? Yeah. And then use all of those tools from wherever you got them.
Yeah. If I fixate on all of those, like what if, if I get too in my head about that, again, I'm like paralyzed and I don't end up producing anything. So I have to just trust whatever happens.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one more thing I wanted to talk to you about, and we've been talking for about an hour, which to me is standard podcast length.
Right.
But from
from
looking at the subject we're about to discuss, it seems you've done some longer ones.
Yes, very longer.
You've recently been doing a podcast called Accelerativ Thrust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, my friend Dan, or he's also from Muscatine. He started it, and honestly, he runs the show. I pretty much just show up and try to say funny things, and that's about the extent of it. But the idea has kind of crystallized into every week we talk about 3 records that we've been listening to that week, and we try to fit in maybe an Iowan artist, a local artist. We started out thinking more like Eastern Iowa, because that's our stomping grounds. But I think we would probably talk to anyone in Iowa, or listen to anything from Iowa. But yeah, so it's been really fun. It's been a learning experience for me. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I've listened to yours a little, and I've listened to Comedy Bang Bang, and I've listened to the new one about Joy Division, A New Order. It's called Transmissions. It's really good.
Nice.
Otherwise, I'm not a big podcast person.
Sure.
So when we started doing it, and I mean, those first episodes are seriously like 2 hours long. It's ridiculous. I was just like, Dan, no one's going to listen to this. And as far as I know, no one does. But it's, I think it's cool because my Spotify Wrapped or whatever that came out last year said that I listened to an average, I did the math, it would be an average of 17 minutes of music a day.
Wow.
That's not very much music.
Yeah.
Like, I hardly listen to any music. I just listened to the first Suicide record on repeat. That's my whole life. And so it was a good way to get into more music. It's like, now not only do I have to find 3 records a week that I want to listen to, I have to listen to Dan's 3 records too. So like, already that's, like I said, I can't do math, but a lot more music, And so that part of it's been really great. It's forced me to listen to things, which is important. I think it gets you excited to do your own things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too,
yeah, like that's when I started doing the radio show, I became like more productive just because I had this thing I was doing once a week and I needed to like plan around it.
Right.
It really did help, like, to have something to do once a week.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, left to my own devices, I don't know. I watch horror movie reviews on YouTube. That's about it.
Yeah, I tend to be
burgers.
I tend to be pretty slothful when I haven't like piled work on myself.
Right. For sure. But yeah, it's on it's Accelerativ Thrust. It's on Spotify. And there's a playlist that goes along with it. I think it's cool because Dan and I come from really different worlds. Like, to a lot of people, the music I listen to would be pretty pedestrian, but to Dan, I think a lot of it's totally insane. And so it's kind of a nice combination. And he listens to the things that I would listen to the first 20 seconds and be like, not for me. But then, you listen to the whole record and you're like, oh, wow, I'm glad that I got exposed to this. So I would say the stuff we listen to actually runs the gamut every week, from 60s psych to doom metal to, I guess they call it escape room. It was my number one genre on Spotify, even though I don't know what it is.
Escape room is the genre?
Yeah, I know, right? Here's everything I listen to, for the most part, has drippy. Okay, I'm not even going to go into this. Okay, it has like drippy synthesizer sounds, like harp plucks, okay?
Okay.
And it has like vocoders or like highly processed vocals. It's similar to like hip hop sometimes. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is. There are numerous artists though. I would say rap wise, maybe like Young Lean is someone that is really cool musically, lyrically terrible. But and so yeah, so that's the kind of stuff I listen to. And I didn't think it was connected. It could even be like the Chromatics or something. Or, they were on the Twin Peaks: The Return.
That's how I know them, yeah.
Right, yeah. And their producer, Johnny Jewel, he's kind of like, does things like that. So I just thought it was all unconnected, and I was a genius for figuring out that all of this stuff sounded the same. Mm-hmm. And then Spotify's like, your favorite genre is escape room. I was like, that seems impossible because I don't know what that means. Like, it's like if someone just said your favorite food is odor eaters, you'd be like, that's not a food. I mean, come on, man. Anyway, so yeah, the show runs the gamut from, all kinds of stuff. And so I think as a listener, it would actually, and I'm not just saying this because I wouldn't lie, I think you would find some stuff every episode where you're like, I really do think I'll check that out. So,
nice.
Yeah.
And it says here, I'm looking at the Accelerativ Thrust transistor.fm page. Okay. And it says you also discuss current events and some politics.
No, not really. No. I no. In the sense that we're like, oh, there's a pandemic, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that right? Takes over everything. Yeah.
And the extent of the political speech is probably something like, it's pretty crazy out there, huh? Yeah. I don't want to get into it. Yeah, me neither.
Just because the election happened while you were doing the show.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess there's a new president, huh? Yeah, let's not talk about it. Okay. That's that might be a stretch. We just talk about really dumb things, mostly music and food, and that's about it. Music and food, I guess.
Yeah, those are dumb things, but they're also necessary, I think.
Yeah, they are.
So I'll include a link to that podcast. I'll include a link to the Englert page for your upcoming stages video, and also I guess I can link the Bandcamp for the album, or do you prefer something else?
No, Bandcamp's just fine.
Okay.
If you're a local person and you want the cassette and you don't want to pay for shipping, just send me a message and we'll figure that out.
Yeah, Eric dropped it off.
I don't think there's a... Yeah.
He dropped the cassette off at my house personally. I didn't see him do it. We didn't talk to each other. But I got
That's how it's been for everyone, yeah.
I got a personalized note too.
Yeah. Some people got notes. Most people got notes.
Nice.
From the first people that bought them. Because I really did appreciate people getting the tape, and I didn't expect it. I know people say that and they try to be all pious and meek and things like that, but I really made it, and I just thought my friends and family, I'll get them a copy, and that's going to be the extent of it. I just assumed that I would make it and no one outside of the people that have to like it would like it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I mean, that is the case a lot of the time.
Yeah. So it's been somewhat exciting to have other people, even people I don't know, have ordered tapes, and I'm like, oh my God, that is so strange.
Yeah.
It's a trip.
Yeah. It doesn't happen that often that something.
No, and it hasn't happened often, but a couple of times.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a pretty good conversation. Do you feel satisfied?
Yeah.
All right.
For sure.
It was nice catching up. It's been a while since we
Yeah.
spoke to each other, since we've been, locked down and not able to go outside or go anywhere.
Yeah, I actually think the Wombat show at Trumpet Blossom might have been the last thing I did.
It was one of the last things I did too.
Yeah.
That was like the week
I wish
before.
Will would have shown up.
Oh, you didn't see him?
I think he was either getting there right when I had to leave, because he kept pushing it back.
He was really late, so we had to keep stretching.
It was like a couple hours. Yeah, it got to be like, I don't even know, 10:30 or something. I was like, I think I have to go.
Yeah.
And now that I don't drink, my nights are shorter, much shorter. So it's like I would have been there till 2 a.m, no matter what happened.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of like, I think I'd rather just go to bed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that was
it's very nice.
That was one of those nights where, like you weren't expecting so many people to care about this tape and order it. People you don't know.
Right.
Like that Wombat show, we made money. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? I had never.
There were quite a few people there. Yeah.
I never make money making this kind of music because it's
no.
bizarre. I'm making music that's not going to appeal to a mass audience. I know what I'm getting into here.
Right.
But
yeah. Anyone that expects to make money is just delusional. I mean, especially now, not even especially now since the pandemic, but especially now,
especially a year
with
ago.
Streaming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, there is no way to be a professional musician. I mean, even I can't imagine the level of success you would have to not need a side job.
Right.
Yeah. It would be like Taylor Swift level. I mean, that's it. It's like all the success, or you're with the rest of us. Like, sorry,
This is do you know who John Oswald is? This is a good note to go out on. Have you heard the term plunderphonics?
No,
Okay.
I haven't.
It's a very sample heavy kind of music, very collage based.
Okay.
This guy John Oswald, he's a composer from Canada.
Uh-huh.
He kind of coined the term and was making these pieces that were just very short snippets of pop songs all jumbled together. And he wrote an essay kind of explaining the philosophy behind this music he was creating and the ethics of sampling other people's work to make your own work.
Yeah.
And a phrase he used in that essay, which has always stuck with me for 10 years since I read it, is the unblessed rest of us.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a name I'm going to use for a band eventually.
The Unblessed?
The unblessed rest of us.
Oh, I like it. That's a nice name.
A little bit of a mouthful, but I've always loved that phrase.
Well, we live in the time where a mouthful's fine.
Yeah.
It was pretty much, there was a pre-Godspeed You Black Emperor world and then post.
Yeah.
It was the first time everyone heard that name, they were like, is that a cult? Come on, man.
All right. Well, for everyone listening, I endorse I'll Remember You This Way. The cassette version is the preferred method by my friend Erik Whittaker here. Thanks, Erik, for talking to me tonight.
Yeah.
This has been a nice conversation. And goodbye from the unblessed rest of us.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Please keep on lying. not to see, not to see. But I